Hi everyone, welcome to our first 10KIF Alumni panel, which is part of our What I Wish I'd Known pre-internship training series. This panel will cover the early days of building your career, mastering key skills, handling challenges, and staying ahead of the curve. So please note that this is a safe space for you to develop your skills and get your questions and queries answered. And please feel free to use the Q&A chat box to submit your questions. Wait a few moments for everyone to arrive, and then we'll get started shortly. Cool. Okay, I think let's get started. Okay, so should we begin with some introductions? We've got Clara May first.
Hi everyone, my name is Clara May. I recently finished my studies studying economics and management at Oxford last June. My first interaction with 10,000 Black interns, I did a 8-week internship with NHS England doing behavioral change sort of things, and I was working on menopause and support systems for sort of vulnerable groups. And then my most recent internship was with economic consulting at Frontier Economics. And that was initially an 8-week internship, turned 7 months, turned 9 months. But yeah, happy to talk about anything regarding that. And my quote is from Dr. May C. Jemison: "Don't let anyone rob you of your imagination, your creativity, or your curiosity. It's your place in the world, it's your life. Go on and do all you can with it and make it the life you want to live." A very inspirational woman. I would highly recommend researching her.
Thank you. So we've got Kikiso.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So my name's Kahiso. So I've had quite a different journey, I would say. So went to university, did accounting and finance at the University of Liverpool, finished that, joined KPMG in the accounting advisory services team, did my ACA there, spent 3 years there. But when I was there, I kind of thought I want to do something different because I was getting bored of accounting. I didn't want to do that anymore. I then thought, okay, what are some of the things I like? One thing I was really passionate about was crypto, but it was very hard to find roles unless you were like a dev or something along those lines. So I kind of thought to myself, what can I do to kind of upskill myself? So I thought, okay, let me do a master's. I did a master's in finance at Cambridge. And then that's where I first came across 10,000 Black interns. And they helped me secure an internship in private equity at a place called Gresham House, where it's basically in growth equity, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing. Spent 4 months there, didn't end up getting a return offer, which, we can go into more details about why that happened later on. And then I then left Gresham House, joined a crypto accounting slash consulting firm. And then now I've actually started a new job on Monday this week at a place called Autonomous, which again is more crypto focused. And there I'm basically helping crypto companies launch tokens, deploy smart contracts, etc. So yeah.
That's a pretty cool journey. I love that there's a lot of synergy with that as
Yeah,
well.
a lot of different.
Okay, we've got Esther. Oh, Esther next.
Hi guys, I'm Esther. My journey is kind of like quite different as well. I studied biochemistry at Aston University. I did a few internships in my first and second year in like venture capital and like banking, but I don't think I was so sure on like what I wanted to do. So in my last year, I signed up to 10K Black interns and I interned at Octopus Investments or Octopus Energy, however you like to say. And that was in sales and distribution for other asset managers. Still wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that point, but got a good insight into the asset management industry. And then following that, they actually gave me a return offer, so I could have stayed and been a sales analyst. But I kind of actually moved over to like more of the client side, and now I work for St. James's Place, which is a wealth manager in the UK, and I work in equity research, which is actually much more interesting and more stimulating, I think. So I really, really enjoy it. And I'm currently studying for my CFA, my exams in November, so fingers crossed. My quote is really from myself: fall down 7 times, get up 8, and one day you won't fall at all. I think that's just a personal memo to myself that there's only so many times that you could be rejected. There's only so many times that like things might not work out for you, but one day they will, and you kind of just have to wait and see and just keep trying. Yeah.
I love that. And good luck with your exams as well.
Thank you.
Angela.
Hi everyone. My name's Ange. So I'm currently a trainee solicitor in my second seat in the Enforcement and Litigation Division at the Bank of England. I graduated last summer from the University of Bristol. I studied law as an undergraduate. I also have a strange story about my first time encountering 10,000 interns. Rather interestingly, my internship came at a time where I wasn't too sure about what I wanted to do. So this was my second year of university. So I kind of applied for things that were outside of law, but law adjacent. So I ended up interning at a legal consultancy and recruitment firm called Jameson Legal. They're rather boutique size, but it was so amazing to be on a completely different side of law. I don't count this as a traditional legal experience, but it was incredible to see law from a completely different perspective. And I found that was really insightful, and the opportunity came for me at the most amazing time. I still maintain fantastic relationships with those at the firm, and they recently have taken me out for lunch and drinks. But yeah, I think my time there is definitely invaluable and gave me a lot to talk about when it came to application season for my third year of university. My quote there is from Amal Clooney, and it's stand up for what you believe in, even if you're standing alone, which I think is definitely something to live by. Thank you.
No, I agree. No, thank you. Well, I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to dive into the panel because I think this is like the best part. So let's get into it. So I want to go back to kind of like the beginning of your journey with us at 10K. So if you could go back to the first day of your internship, what advice would you give yourself now? That's a big question. Yeah.
Are we going to go in the same order, or can like
any, whatever speaks to you, whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So mine was in private equity, and I remember when I got there, first thing I realized was I was the only black person there, and that felt very uncomfortable. It didn't feel right to me, especially because I'm from South Africa, so as you can imagine. But if I was to go back, I think I would probably tell myself it's okay not to know everything on day one, and they don't expect you to know everything on day one. I know there's a misconception that the only way you can get a return offer is if you know everything on day one and you know everything. But reality is they know you're an intern, they know you're there to learn. And I think the most important thing is make yourself susceptible to being coached and mentored by people who are more experienced than you at the job. So just be open, be friendly, and make yourself coachable.
I love that idea of like being open to like being coachable and like I feel like acknowledging that you are always something to be working on and you should
Yeah.
constantly be striving for that self-improvement. But I know you've unmuted yourself as well, so dive in.
Just to add to that point, I think this is all for like people that are more like shy or introverted, but like I guess it's hard to say stop being shy, but honestly stop being so shy. A way to probably combat shyness is like just scheduling the coffee catch up, and then you've scheduled it now, so now you have to go. So I would do that routinely. I would like schedule coffee catch ups with like 5 people and just attend them and just be friendly, kind, and adaptable, open to learn, because I guess that's the whole part of being an intern. So I think being quite shy and in your shell probably isn't like the best approach to like wanting a return offer, because sometimes I feel like you can get a return offer based off of your personality, sometimes over the skills that you have. They could sometimes be overlooked. So definitely try and be personable. That's my tip.
Great. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so I think my piece of advice would be to not be afraid to ask for what you want. I think one of the first conversations I had was with my manager, and he asked me, what am I wanting to get out of my time here? Like, what am I willing to learn? And I think me being rather nervous, obviously it was like my first day, I kind of spewed off the same kind of like interview-esque answers, even though I'd already gotten the job and I'd already been chosen. So I think knowing that questions like these aren't really traps is important. So what do you want to get out of the internship? Answer honestly and ask what you want. For example, with me, the firm that I was at, that was their first year taking interns ever. So 9 times out of 10, they will accommodate for it because they don't know what they're doing. They want to learn from you. So yeah, always ask for what you want and don't be afraid to speak up if you want to get some specific experience.
Yeah, I also want to echo what everyone has said here as well. Definitely agree with also talking to people. You don't underestimate the power of connections and talking to people, even when it comes to things like being able to ask for help, and even further down the line, I think those sort of connections of being able to ask for what you want, you might even end up extending whatever job kind of thing that you want to get into, just because you've had that connection and you've built that sort of rapport with that person. Really don't underestimate being who you are and bringing yourself to the workplace.
I love that. And on that note, what is kind of like one unexpected lesson that you learned during your internship that still shapes the way you approach work today?
Could I jump on that question?
Of course, yeah.
I would definitely say the power of planning. I think having a set plan before you enter your internship is like crucial for success. So I would say if you know you want to get a return offer out of it, you should be scheduling weekly catch-ups with your manager and also logging what you said in that chat with your manager, so that the next time you have a conversation, it's like you pick up from where you last left off, and it's not like what did we do? Like you just have like a scheduled log of your progress. I'd also say like all the tasks you like done during your internship, you should also log that in like an Excel sheet. And also from the beginning, there's no harm in saying like, you know, I'd love to come back, like I'd love to have a return offer, because if you don't ask, you don't get. So just making sure that like everyone knows your intentions from the get-go and you've planned this out is probably just the best way to make sure that you return for next time.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Esther just said now, I 100% agree with that. I think I remember now when I first joined, the person who was kind of like looking after me during my internship, I sat them down and I asked them, well, my goal is to basically get a full-time offer from this. What do I need to do? And then with them, we kind of set up like a plan on what are some of the things that I can do to make sure that come the end of the 12 weeks or whatever it was at the time, you know, we can potentially put you in a great position for them to want to keep you. So again, yeah, do not be afraid to ask for what you want, because the only way they'll know what you want is if you tell them, right? So please do not ever be afraid.
I really want to also echo what both you, Kiso and Esther, said. 100%, 1000% say what you want. I'm the sort of person that before this internship, I always just thought, if I work really hard and I do this thing, people automatically see that I'm working hard, which people do recognize that you're working hard, but also people have 1,000 other things on their brain, and it's easy to not necessarily overlook, but not realize the amount of effort that you're putting in, especially as an intern. And it was only because I had asked, and I mentioned actually that I wanted to extend my internship. And this was on the last week of my contract. And I told the resource manager that I wanted to have to stay a bit longer. That she was just like, oh, okay, we need actually a few more people here. I can put you in touch with this person. I can put you in touch with the director of this practice and this practice. And because of that, literally on the final day, with less than a week's notice, I found out that they extended my internship. So please don't underestimate the power of asking and just being straightforward. It's not cute. Well, it's cute to be shy, but it's not cute in the working world. You need to speak up. So that's my 2 pieces on that.
And yeah, honestly, my advice is the same thing. Like, I think for me, what I learned was that how much people love to go on coffee chats and how much people do want to hear from you. So take those coffee chats as an opportunity to learn from people, but then also to, once again, tell them what you're wanting to learn from them or asking them for advice, things like that. So yeah, go on coffee chats and definitely don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be shy, like Esther said.
I love this from what I'm getting from it is be extroverted, fake it if you can, but also be strategic. And also if you don't ask, you don't get, pretty much. So take notes, guys. Another thing, I guess, kind of like piggybacking off what you guys have said is what kind of like skills or behaviors helped you gain visibility and stand out in your workplace? Now you would have touched on it a bit by like being extroverted and asking questions, but are there any other particular out of the box kind of strategies and tactics that you have?
I'm not sure this is necessarily like out of the box, but my best strategy I think was managing expectations and keep people updated on the work that I've been assigned. I mean, obviously, I think I've always been doing that, but when I started working and I started hearing feedback from people saying, "Wow, this is so useful, thank you so much," it kind of encouraged me to keep doing it, and I'm still doing it now, even at my workplace. So even if you think it may be a little bit annoying, they really do appreciate it, and they really do want to know what you're working on at any given time. Plus, I feel like it's a lot better to tell them what you're working on and how it's going rather than not telling them anything at all and then requesting for more time, because it will just look a bit random and to some extent rather unprofessional. So definitely a way to impress them is to manage expectations.
I guess I can add to that. I would say this might come off of as like extroverted as well, but like I guess building relationships like outside of just like, you know, just workplace chatter, like actually taking time to know your colleagues is quite important. I know it's only 12 weeks, but 12 weeks is actually a long time when you're working anyways. So I think, yeah, taking the time to like talk with your colleagues outside of your team is also important, because say for example you're in like marketing and like you only speak to marketing, you're losing out on all the opportunities in the rest of the business. So if they don't hire you in marketing, they could hire you outside of the business, and that's I guess the whole point of your internship, to network and be around a whole bunch of different people that you never would have been around to begin with. But yeah.
And I think also just ask people what they're working on, because a lot of the time, you don't know what someone's working on until you ask them. So, and they usually are very happy to tell you or potentially even get you involved. So, and you need to remember as well, the point of the internship is for you to experience as much as possible. So please, you have to ask away, ask what people are working on, try get involved as much as you can. But again, like they said before, manage expectations, don't overcommit and then fail, because then that reflects really badly on you. So again, but yeah, always ask what people are working on, because that shows you're interested.
That's a good idea, actually. Like being a problem solver, I guess, ask your manager what's the problem, aim to solve it. And they might even just make a whole new job role just for you, just based off the fact that you can solve this problem that no one else or no one has been bothered to do. Or just even finding odd jobs that people hate doing, you should do them, because even though you hate doing it, your responsibilities will change longer down the line, but like doing it now could be super helpful.
Oh, I love that. I love that it's about creating that opportunity, even if you can't find it, and really just taking ownership and initiative. So on that note as well, because it seems like all my questions, you guys almost seem to be answering them sometimes, but how did you go beyond just doing your tasks and networking to continuously add value and leave a lasting impact? And that's quite a big question.
Yeah,
I felt the silence, like pin drop. Okay, I
yeah,
got you there.
yeah. Because I think it
That's the
probably
thing.
depends on the industry you're in, right? Because
Okay.
like for me, because it was private equity and the whole thing was trying to find businesses to invest in. So instead of kind of being told, do this, I was researching, looking at, different publications, websites, all these different things to try and find businesses that I think fit the mandate of the fund, and then bringing these forward and then saying, hey, I found X X business, like 10 businesses here that I think, they fit with what we're looking to do with the fund. So, is this what do you guys think initially? And then they'll be like, oh wow, that's great. Do more research on this. And then, you come back. And then actually towards the end of my internship, I ended up doing a presentation on, I think, gaming companies. They made me do like a whole thing on gaming. I had to go research different things in gaming to try to find companies to invest in. And I ended up bringing about 15 companies to kind of, like mentioning 15 companies on that presentation. And I think they ended up investing in one of them, which is great. So, it's just stuff like that.
No, but I love that it's
Um,
about leaving a legacy,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
showing that he was able to contribute, even like at an intern stage and only build
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Yes, Angela, sorry.
oh no, it's okay. I think for me, it's so with the legal consultancy, it's rather client facing. Like that was very much the nature of our work. Um, so I think something that made me stand out and kind of add value to, I guess, my professional self was saying being not being afraid to say hello to clients first. So I think like a lot of the time, like you wait for them to say hi to you, or for them to acknowledge you, or for somebody to be like, hey, this is, you know. But it was, I think one time, I think my manager was preoccupied, and I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna build rapport, I'm gonna say hi. And ever since then, he was kind of, I don't know, impressed. And I thought it was quite a small thing, but small things like that, I think they take notice of, and it also makes you look, or come across really confident, somebody who would, be a perfect fit for that industry as well. So that would be my little tip.
I love that. Don't wait to be introduced. Create that moment. Again, like we are all in charge of like our career trajectories. And as like a point I was like before, if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you really want to create that good impression, you have to take charge of that.
I 100% agree with what everyone has been saying. I think for me, I initially thought as an intern or just in general working that I think I saw it through the university lens of being a student, where you think, okay, being a good student, I want to do the work that's given to me to the best quality that I can, which you should do. I'm not telling anyone to do the work that they're given at a poor quality. But I think that's sort of like the base foundation of what you go on to then do. I think these opportunities and what both of you just said about in terms of going and taking that initiative, that's what really matters when you start to bring yourself. And I didn't realize I had the permission to do this. So for me, I only realized that this was actually a very important skill for me during my mid review. So it was 3.5 months. I'm not ashamed to say the truth. Like it was about 3 months before I realized I could actually be myself and bring my ideas forward. And from that point on, that was when I was like, okay, I can bring my ideas. One of them, I was working on a competition case for one of the larger social media platforms. And we were talking about smaller players that are using the platform, for example. And I brought an idea to my project manager and we discussed it. And created the graphs for it, and they ended up including it in this client slide pack. But had I not said this or not brought my ideas forward, that would have just been something that was never been in there. Or even towards the end, I decided to give my experience as the first 10,000 Black interns program. I think someone else on the panel had said, you know, as you're learning to be an intern, they're also learning how to accommodate interns. So that I had a unique point of view to provide that. And to this day, even like 3 weeks finished from my intern, I still have people from the company reaching out to me on LinkedIn telling me how insightful it was. And don't underestimate the value that you can bring just because you feel like you're the most inexperienced. You bring fresh ideas because you've never been in that environment before, and people really value that. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling.
I agree with you. I definitely think, like, I don't know, being a Black girl, sometimes it's almost like you're afraid to speak, which sounds very crazy, but generally in like a work environment, I think my first couple of weeks, I was definitely afraid to say anything. Like I would just be quiet in meetings, and they definitely want to hear from you. You're in the room because you were chosen over so many other people. Like they have like thousands of applications. So I think if you see yourself as 1 in 1,000 Black girls or Black males, sorry, that were chosen, like you're very, very special. You're definitely going to make a big contribution to any setting that you're in. So yeah, any room that you're in, take an opportunity, because that may be the last time you're in that room. So yeah, make a lasting impression.
I agree. And on that theme of rooms, what was the moment you realized you like started to build your personal brand, and how did you reinforce it?
I can say,
Is it okay if I go first?
oh, sorry, no, you go.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to go, Esther? Okay. I think for me, I realized I had built a personal brand, I guess, towards the end of my internship. And I was speaking with one of the recruiters, and they had told me that someone had spoken about me in a good way, a positive way, in terms of my ability to talk with other people. And I found that funny because in the back of my mind, I can be really hard on myself. So I'm thinking, I'm not talking to enough people, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing enough. But don't underestimate the sort of connections or just talking to people. And I think for me, my personal brand is just, well, I genuinely love talking to people anyway. But I think my brand was just that, being myself, trying to make those connections, taking genuine interest in people. The amount of interesting stories, if you even ask people what did they do before they got, what did they do before they arrived at that company, you'd be fascinated of all the different things they've done work-wise, much less like hobbies and other things outside of that. And that's when I realized, okay, I have this sort of personal brand. Stop underestimating and underselling myself. Let me even lean further into that. Let me do this talk about my experiences to HR and the talent team, and explain what my experiences are, continuing to build that, I guess, chatty patty kind of personality that I've been known for. So yeah, sometimes for me at least in this case, I didn't realize I was building one until someone had said, this is what people are talking about you behind closed doors, in a good way. But that was my experience.
I guess to add on to that, I would say, yeah, I think I was definitely a bit of a chatty patty. I realized that I built a personal brand when like I worked for Octopus Investment. So like I only covered like asset management. So I would sell products for the asset management teams. But I realized I was quite known when like I was offered jobs all around the business in venture capital, real estate, Octopus Energy. And that's mainly because I spoke to everyone. I knew everyone in the whole building. Like I would schedule coffee catch-ups with the CEO. Like I really didn't care who it was. I just know I want to have a chat, or I'll have a chat when like in the kitchen or like anywhere in the building I can find you. I would say, hi, I am so-and-so and I'm an intern. So I think that's really important in building your brand and visibility, because sometimes as Black people, I feel like we have no visibility within an office, even though they see us, but like they don't really know what we're about, what we have to say. And yeah, I think it's also important in building like the brand of other Black people, or like the other interns that will also enter that space. You're kind of like setting a tone. So just make sure you're always having like, you know, like just the best impression, and also looking good within the office space, I think is super important. I do think to be yourself is important, but also reading the room and reading, like if it's more of a casual environment, then you can be a bit more casual. But if you can see it's quite formal, and that's like what the general consensus of the community is, a workplace is a community, so you do want to make sure that you fit into that. But
I think for me, it was when people started taking me to pitches without me having to ask to go. So because of the nature of the job, it's almost like a Dragon's Den vibe where you've got founders coming in every day from different parts of like different industries, and they're just pitching the ideas to you. And one person told me that the reason why they want to take me with is because they've heard that I ask very good questions and stuff that they may not necessarily think of. And I remember going to a tech incubator / accelerator thing in Shoreditch, and it was like in some hidden location, and then you walk in there and it's like 5 floors of startups. And someone told me that, well, there's over 100 million pound worth of capital that's been invested in all of these startups here. And I think I was in that room, someone invited me to go with them. I was in that room with, I think everyone there had minimum 15 years of experience. So it's kind of like, wow, this person trusts me to, be in this, represent the firm in this thing where we're trying to basically secure these people to come and let us invest in them, basically. So yeah, I'd probably say when people started taking me along without me having to ask.
I think for me, it was when I started getting more interesting work. When I was assigned things that were a lot less tedious and I guess boring. Not that the work was very boring, but the things that the consultants didn't want to do themselves, kind of thing. I was assigned work by one of the directors who thought that I had amazing attention to detail, and they were like, "Oh, we've heard from so and so that you're really good at things like this. Like, let me give you this work," and that carried on until after I finished. Like literally, I think the winter afterwards, they asked me if I wanted to help out with the publication of their. I think it was their hiring guide, but they said because you were such a good intern, because you have such good attention to detail, we want you to do this. And that gave me part-time work during university. I could choose my own hours and stuff like that. So definitely that was, yeah, I think my personal brand is kind of revolved around that whole idea of attention to detail. And ever since then, I've been consciously reinforcing that and actually making sure I am paying attention. And even when I'm less interested in work and I just want to get it out the door, like just get it off my inbox, I'm still making sure I'm paying attention to detail because I don't want to stop thinking I'm not attentive and I'm not who they thought I was. So yeah.
I love those stories, and honestly, kudos to you all, because that has come from your own hard work and building those connections to then have people speaking such amazing things about you behind closed doors. From that, I would love if you could actually share a story of how networking and building a strong connection has led to an unexpected career opportunity or another connection possible.
I could say, because this is kind of how I got my job currently. So I work at a wealth manager now, and the company I worked at was basically the company I work at now is a client for the company I interned at. So we invest in Octopus Energy we used to anyways, in one of their like funds. And I went to a meeting with Octopus and St. James's Place, and like I just networked within that meeting. Any meeting you go to, I think you should always add them on LinkedIn afterwards and maybe set up a chat, set up a coffee, just to speak further. And I think because I knew, because I'd already been in like the same room talking about the same mandates, and I just basically switched over to the other side. It was just easier when I applied for for a job with them because we kind of already had that kind of relationship going already. So my main tip is like any room you're in, you never know like how successful people are or like where they are and how they can get you to where you want to be. So just always make sure you're following up with the second chat after the first chat, basically.
I also totally agree with that. I think for me, it's making sure you interact with everyone in that room as well. Like, for example, when I was at an Insight Week at Weil, which is a US law firm, the graduate recruitment there, nobody was really speaking to them. They were mostly going around the associates and not really interacting with the more support staff. But I made it my mission to say hello to everyone and make sure I was really connecting with them. And like Esther said, adding them on LinkedIn. Because after that, when I was applying for VAC schemes, they made it a lot easier for us, and they ended up, because we'd taken part in a scheme, they ended up sending us the questions in advance, our application questions in advance, so we could actually prepare before the applications open for everybody else. I think that was definitely an important step for me because, I mean, it was amazing, incredibly helpful. But then also, I still have them on LinkedIn, and obviously, the way that work, professional lives work, they move around to different law firms, and I think that's definitely the type of relationship that you can leverage in the future. It doesn't have to be straight after your internship; it can be multiple years down the line. But it's about building up that network and doing things like that.
For me, I would say when I was at my internship, so one thing that I was really passionate about was crypto. And even though the fund itself didn't invest in crypto in any capacity because high risk, the typical stuff they tell you about it, which may or may not be true anyway. But they very much knew that I was very much interested in this. And then when one of the investment managers left the firm, a couple months afterwards, they reached out to me because he was moving to a family office who had a bit of like a crypto VC arm. And he basically asked me to come and join him at his family office because, we'd worked together a lot during the internship, trusted my work, my knowledge, etc. So I think that was a very, very, yeah, I think from networking and just speaking to him and getting, working with him, that ended up becoming a very, very good opportunity.
That's incredible. No, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing those stories. I think I'm going to wrap up asking questions only because there have been a few that have come through in the chat and the Q&A box, and I'm conscious of time. So do you mind if we jump into the Q&A part? So you have one from Akintunde who said, connection and relationship are key in this program. What alternatives will you suggest or do you suggest to coffee chats, especially for a fully remote position? So, I see you did touch on it before about like scheduling calls. I don't know if you have anything else, especially with the other panelists.
In terms of networking, of course, like an in-person connection is always going to be the most beneficial. But if you can't connect in person, then there's nothing wrong with scheduling like just a Zoom call or a link or like a Teams call. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with scheduling a Teams call or a meeting call, like just to have a quick catch up. Is probably the only other beneficial way that you can like make sure you're building these relationships. And I guess maybe checking in every week would be quite good.
Anyone else have any suggestions? It's okay if you don't.
Not speaking from experience, but I do know that some people at work, for example, who are fully remote due to multiple different reasons, they do make an effort to come to socials when things are planned. I think that may be a good way to kind of get that face time in that, they're planned months in advance. You can kind of maybe work your way towards that one date. And then also you kind of have the advantages of connecting with your work colleagues, but in a less pressurized environment. Like it's a lot more laid back. You don't have to talk about work at all. You can just get to know them as people. And I think going forward, that's really important because you'd feel a lot I mean, not only are you easier to approach because they know who you are, but you feel a lot more comfortable approaching them as well. So yeah, that would be my advice on that.
Thank you both for sharing. We have had about 3 come through directly to the host and panelist chat. So first question is it common for colleagues to bond throughout work events? I don't have much experience with these types of relationships, so I'm not sure how often would people do or initiate these events.
Yeah, it's definitely very common. Very, very common. I think the other thing as well is people have different work styles. So on your internship, you might come across someone who during work hours, they're just very locked in and they don't, they don't really speak to people. They just focus purely on their work. And so you can't really connect with someone like that during working hours because they just focused on that. So when it comes to things like social events, and then you start going and attending those, you'll start noticing that people loosen up a little bit more. People are themselves a bit more. And that's where you can start to basically build those relationships. So they are definitely very important, I would say. But again, it's not like you've got to go to these events and drink and do all these things. You don't have to do that. No one forces you to do that either. So yeah, don't feel like you have to do that. But I would definitely say I'd recommend attending them and just being yourself.
Yeah, definitely. If someone is, I think I just insert myself into things personally. So, like, if they're all going for lunch, I'll say, "Can I come with?" Or if there's a social, I mean, it's team dependent socials. At my office now, I feel like I have a bit more socials than I did on my internship. But you can always initiate them and say, "Do you guys want to go for drinks?" You don't have to drink at all, of course. I don't actually drink, but that's another way to make sure you're quite visible because you tend to meet people that you would never have met in the workplace by just going to these kind of activities. So yeah, just inserting yourself into things is the best way to make friends, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also in terms of like frequency, I think it depends on where you end up. So I know, as you said, that you drink, you go to drinks more. There's more socials at where you work now, rather than what there was at your internship. I think for me, at my internship, we'd go out drinking at least like 3 times a week, which is a lot, but you're not meant to go to every single evening drink. So in terms of like frequency, nobody expects you to be there all the time. If you go like once every other week or once a month, like nobody's gonna mind at all. I think they're just gonna enjoy seeing you outside of that work environment. And I think that definitely is not what they're looking for, but something that, I mean, in a way, what they're looking for, because they want to know a bit more about you. They want to know about your personality outside of work. But don't feel pressured to go if you don't feel like you want to, because they usually will have bigger socials, and that'll be like their summer social or their Christmas social. And those are not mandatory, but it's more likely that more people would attend. So if you don't want to go to the weekly ones or the daily ones, go to the bigger ones, bigger events. And once again, you don't have to drink. So
Yeah,
Just, oh yeah,
sorry,
go on. No, go
sorry,
ahead.
echo. I'm also someone who doesn't drink, so I always was kind of on edge around sort of drinking culture and whether or not I would fit in because of that. I think one way, if you don't feel comfortable going to sort of drinking events, 100% agree with what Angela said in terms of like the big social events. That's what I tended to go to, sort of like the summer parties, the autumn parties, whatever. And then also I feel like we've spoken a lot about being extroverted, and there's probably some like quote unquote like introverts in the chat being like, I can't do that. Don't underestimate the power of like one-on-one conversations and building rapport that way. I've had so many random conversations at lunch, and just like from something, I'll bring something that I might have bought or cooked, and they'll be like, "Oh, what's that you're eating?" Especially when you're like your cultural foods. There was like one spot I always used to go to, this Caribbean place, and I used to always get the curry goat and rice and peas. Also a bad big mistake because it's a very heavy meal for a 1 hour lunch. But anyway, but sometimes that would just be enough for me to start a conversation and be like, yeah, my parents are from Jamaica, this and that, and some other conversations. Oh yeah, I wanted to go to this Caribbean island, or this and this. Don't underestimate having those one-to-one conversations. because it's not always just about quantity, it's also about the quality of those sort of relationships that you build within the workplace. So yeah, don't underestimate lunchtime.
Agreed. There seems to be a lot of heat in the chat and as well as the Q&A box about networking, specifically around coffee chats. So someone has asked, like, it seems like coffee chats are an established form of interaction with colleagues as managers. I've never heard of this concept before. Could someone please break it down? Like, how does it work? What happens during these conversations, and how often should the intern initiate them? On that, someone has also asked, especially for Esther, but I also want to pose it to everyone else as well. Are there any like tips like for like conversation starters? Because I know Clara May, you've already touched on that as well with like lunch, but there seems to be a lot about what is this mysterious coffee chat and what does it mean? So
I guess conversation starters, that's going to be quite awkward to begin with, but as you keep going and as you're like day to day in like office and stuff, you'll kind of get used to it. If it's a Friday, oh, what's your plans for the weekend? If it's a Monday, how was your weekend last week? And like as you talk to someone, I always say, pick up where you last left off. If someone has told you on the weekend they're going somewhere, you say on Monday, oh, like, how was that? Like, how's the kids? Or like things like that. Coffee catch-ups as well. They can be informal or quite formal. It depends like what you want to get out of that conversation. If it's just an introductory chat, I would just ask the person about like one, their experience. Don't try to do like obvious questions that you could probably find on their LinkedIn. Probably try to nitpick somewhere where it's like something that you might find is a bit odd or just something you want to know more about. So I definitely would ask about their experience, ask about, and then you can speak a bit more about yourself as well. Just make it more conversational, just be very free and light. I don't think you should be nervous at all. Like introductory chats are always the best chats because they're very formulated. What do you do? What do I do? Okay, what else? Like, how can I add value to the business? And then your next conversation after that. I mean, you don't have to have another conversation after that, but if you was to have another conversation after that, it's more for just building relationships. But coffee catch-ups are super, super important. And you'll see people having them quite frequently. I probably have one 4 times a week right now. So don't underestimate coffee catch-ups. Definitely schedule some in.
perfect. No, thank you. Someone has also asked, how do you approach a scenario where you are assigned a task you've never done? I don't want to look incompetent, but I also don't want to be asking too many questions.
Ask those questions. 100% ask those
I
questions.
agree.
And don't stop asking until you're comfortable to go away and do it on your own, because you don't want to be stuck trying to figure something out that, you've now spent like 2 hours trying to figure something out that you would have been able to do in 10 minutes had you just asked. So don't be afraid to ask. They know you're there as an intern. They know you don't know everything. So like one of the first things most people probably say to you is like, oh, it's okay if you ask. Like just ask me whatever you want to ask me. Like I'm not expecting you to know everything. So please ask. They don't expect you to know everything.
I think also like obviously ask the questions, but try and unpick the task you've been given. I think they often like it when you come to them with like even half-baked solutions. So if you have initial ideas, it's easier to kind of talk through them as you're asking those questions. It's okay to be wrong. They're probably expecting you to be wrong the majority of the time anyways, but giving them indication that you've actually thought about it rather than just looking at it being like, oh, I don't get this, and kind of shutting yourself down. I think they'll be a lot more receptive to that, and it also shows that you're willing to learn and you're really engaged with the topic at hand, even though you may not get it at first.
That's some really good advice. Thank you, everyone. Someone has also asked, do you have any advice for first year interns? Do you think that their position or approach should be any different compared to people who are graduating and may have more concrete career goals?
I'd say I want to say no, because at the end of the day, I think if like you want to do as many internships as possible, of course. So you're in a better position to someone that is like probably like a third year. But I think the end goal is always still the same, return offer. I've seen people in first and second year get return offers for when they graduate. So it's just good to have loads of options rather than like wait till third year and then you're like panicking. So definitely no, end goal is still the same. However, I would focus more on building relationships more so than trying to secure an offer. So it's not that I wouldn't do the work, but you're in a slightly better position. So if you can talk more to more people, I would do that over like, I would prioritize that over like more so work. I'm not saying don't do your work, but the relationships you build will be more important than the work that you do that won't be beneficial 3 years down the line.
Sorry, let there be a bit of silence. I wanted to check if anyone else had anything to add, but that's okay. Someone has also asked when would be a good time to ask for an internship extension or return offer. Like when I know Esther, you did touch on that earlier where you said like be quite strategic from the get-go if that's something that you want. But I'm guessing, are there any other times? I know Angela and Clara May also touched on it.
Day
We
one.
can also day one.
Day one. Your first day, when you have your, I don't know, your first week, you might have an orientation or your first catch up with your manager. Hi, this is what I want to do. I would love to have a return offer back. How can I do this? Be very upfront and direct, I think, is the best option.
Cool. And then Blessing has also asked, how do you keep up with connections and relationships if your internship is hybrid? I would say also just connections in general.
For my internship, my one at with regards to economic consulting was hybrid. So, I mean, the minimum that you had to be in the office was 2 days a week, and any other time that you came into the office, that was up to you. When I started my internship, I tried to be in as many days as possible. So I would highly recommend, if you can, trying to be in the office if it's possible, because just being in the present, you're able to just walk over to that person. That barrier of like, I need to organize this and this call is not as isn't I wouldn't say it's even there sometimes, because it's just a literally walk across the desk and you can be there and have a conversation with that person. So that's something I would take in consideration, especially if you're thinking about maintaining and building relationships. And then perhaps as you go along and you feel more calm and more settled and you've met as many people as you can, then perhaps you can sort of focus more on staying at home. Of course, this is my advice and what I did, but that's what worked for me in terms of trying to build those sort of relationships with people. And then in terms of if you actually physically can't, because you're restricted to only a certain amount of days. With my last internship, it was solely remote. And I think Esther had touched on this as well, in terms of just trying, if that's the case, then trying to sort of schedule in these specific times where you're going to actually just talk to this person. It might be regarding something specific, or it might just be a catch up, seeing how they're doing, catching up with what they had said before in terms of what you guys had been speaking about, any fun holidays, anything like that. But I would also try to remember, just they're humans at the end of the day, and they want to talk to you as much as you want to talk to them. And you'd be also really surprised how many people want to help people. Like, all of us as panelists, we're doing this out of our own free time because we want to help you guys, not because no one forced us to be here. Don't underestimate how many people actually want to help you on your journey, because somebody helped them as well down the line, and I feel a sense of like, oh yeah, I feel happy that I'm able to help someone. And you could be that someone that they help. So don't ever underestimate just asking for help and being honest and trying to build relationships with that human.
No, I totally agree. I was just typing in your LinkedIn because someone has asked. But the last question that is in the Q&A box is, I feel a bit anxious because I'm a graduate and my internship does not offer a role at the end. They said they're not offering one for my department, but are happy to recommend me to other departments if I show interest. What would you recommend? Whilst you guys think of an answer to that question, I actually want to also extend it. as we are probably all very much aware, the job market is crazy right now. And I think with the kind of like macro environment that we're in, especially with like DI and whatnot, that's probably going to only make it a bit harder. So I just want to know if you had any kind of like strategies as well. I know networking is a big thing, but for supporting people in the young professionals in the early stages of their career with searching for jobs or opportunities, in addition to the networking piece.
So just on that first question,
Of
so
course,
I
yeah.
I had the exact same experience with mine where they told me, we'd love to keep you on, but we're not hiring. Unfortunately, there's like internally, this is just not going to happen. But what we can do is potentially put you in another department. So I would definitely say first thing you need to do is just make sure you know all the different departments that are there. Make a list if you have to of stuff you're interested in. Start reaching out and the stuff we spoke about earlier regarding coffee chats. Set up coffee chats with people that work in departments you're interested in, just to try and understand, is there potentially an opportunity for you to do something there long term? And I would probably also say as well, when I did my internship, they did give me the opportunity to transfer out into another department. So around the 8 week mark, they said, okay, you can go spend 6 weeks in this department where there's room for you to join full time. And I didn't want to do that at the time because I wasn't really interested in that department. But I would probably say, definitely consider that strongly, because if they're telling you that they do want to keep you in the firm, but it's just unfortunate that they can't keep you in that same department. But 100% organize coffee chats, start meeting people in those different departments that are willing to take you on. And then, yeah. And then what is the second question? Oh, regarding like finding roles and stuff. Was that?
Especially in
Yeah.
like our current climate with kind of like the dire job market at the moment.
Yeah, that is rough. That is tough. Uh,
But
yeah.
maybe even like tips like staying motivated and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you will probably end up applying for a lot of different things before one role does stick, but it will happen. So I think try to stay motivated, try to keep pushing, do not give up. And I think, again, try maybe consider industries that you didn't potentially consider before, because I think a lot of times people don't really realize that you've got a lot of transferable skills, that, you might have your heart set on, let's say, private equity or an investment banking role or whatever, but there's still stuff out there where you can do, I don't want to say similar work, but work that's all strategic. There's different roles in consulting, for example, or like me, when I'm looking at something like crypto, where, there's a lot of people who you'll speak to, they've never ever considered working in that space, but it's a space where there's a lot of opportunity. There's a hell of a lot of opportunity. And, I think especially for people who study, or rather people who are interested in technology, I think that's something that you could probably look at. So the firm that I work at the moment, they don't have like an internship scheme, but this is something that I'm working with them to try and get sorted out. So if you are interested in crypto, add me on LinkedIn. Let's have a conversation, and let's hopefully try get as many of you guys in the door there. If you're interested in crypto, of course.
I would just add to the fact that the current job I have now, I was actually rejected for before they accepted me, funny enough. So sometimes, like if you've gone to an assessment center stage, I think um making sure you're staying in contact with the recruiters or anyone that you've met, because those are probably like really like crucial, successful higher up people. Staying in contact with them, and just even if you didn't get it, like just not being a sore loser, because when I then did my internship, had a bit of experience, then tried to apply for the same job again, they accepted me this time, and I didn't even have to go through a formal process. It was more so, do you want to have a catch up? Let's talk about this role. The second interview was, would you like to meet the team? So I definitely think don't underestimate rejection. Like, don't underestimate the grind. Don't underestimate like the steps that you've taken to get somewhere, because like eventually the door has to open. Eventually someone has to take you in. It's just like a matter of time. And I also would say, on the cusp of like getting a job and things like that, I think upskilling is quite important. say for example, like you want to be in asset management. I can't talk to any other industry because I don't know anything about anything else. But if you would like to get into asset management, think about some of the skills that would be required or certificates. So we have the IMC, which is basically like it's basically a certificate for investment management. There's also the CFA, so Chartered Financial Analyst. You start to do these things when you're actually in the role. So if you, for example, have a year off or you don't actually end up getting a grad role, I think doing a certification like that will make you stand out from anyone else, because no one typically has that. And it's a bit expensive to kind of do the exam, but it's less than a master's. So I think a master's is around 9K. The CFA exam requires 6 months and is about £2,000. So it's fractionally different. So I would definitely say upskill if you don't land a job. And it's sometimes I also think it's almost really, really good that you don't land a job and you have a year off, because there's so much that you learn in that year off, and there's just so many things that you could be doing. Also, another tip to stay motivated is have fun whilst you're applying to jobs. Go on that holiday whilst you're applying to jobs. Do that thing that you most wanted to do whilst you're applying for jobs, because when you do get that job, it's go time, and you may not have time for the things that you wanted to do before. Because now that I'm working full time, I've worked for 7 months, and I'm like, wow, I really wish that I traveled here. I really wish that I did that with my friends, because you may not have the time to do so. So yeah, top tips.
Yeah, so I would definitely agree with those. I can once again only speak to the legal profession, but I think because it's already so competitive, I think there's something like 5,000 training contracts every year. Obviously, thousands more students, thousands more people who weren't able to get it that first time round, thousands more, just oversaturated basically. But I think one of my main forms of advice is don't be afraid to have options. I think going into third year for me, when I was applying, I definitely looked into other industries, like what I think was mentioned before, looked into things that were similar, not exactly the same, things I could see myself doing for a while, even if that is just for a year, but something that I knew that could add to my CV, or something where I knew that I could, have these transferable skills that would be valuable in my applications if I had to apply the following year. And I think that's going to lead me on to my next point, is just not to turn your nose up at certain roles just because you think that you should be getting, I guess, a better paid or a more prestigious role. So I guess for law students, a lot of the time you're applying for a training contracts to become a trainee solicitor. And a lot of the time, I know a lot of my friends didn't apply for paralegal jobs and they ended up leaving university with nothing at all. But realistically, applying for paralegal jobs, that's not going to take you much time. And even those are super competitive. So there is that demand there for paralegals. And a lot of the time, if you end up working as a paralegal in a firm, they do offer you down the road the opportunity to train with them. And I'd also say not just paralegal roles, but legal assistant roles, like something that just gets your foot in the door. Don't turn your nose up to it. It's not going to be forever. If you don't want it to be forever, just get applying and apply to as many things as possible. I always say it's a numbers game. You only need that one acceptance. But yeah, apply. Apply with intention. Don't just put in rubbish applications everywhere, but just keep applying and keep going. I think in itself that's a bit of motivation, but you will get a role. Like I think was mentioned before, you will get something. It just takes that one acceptance.
I agree, and thank you so much for the inspiring advice, everyone. I'm gonna wrap it here, but I do just want to say thank you so much for your time, for sharing your expertise, knowledge, and just honestly, as I said, your time, and for diving into what these infamous coffee chats are, because that was a hot topic. Yeah, and I just also want to thank everyone who has attended today for your engagement. So if you have any further questions or queries, please feel free to email us. We can share them with the speakers, like our alumni. You have access to them. You can find them on LinkedIn. So again, organize that coffee chat. You got time. Try and beat Esther's 4, because for a week, I'm not even on that. I love that. But yeah,
I do
well,
have a coffee, so.
love that. But no, yeah, thank you again. And I hope you all have a lovely Friday and weekend. Take care.
Thank you.